And Alicia, this is, I suppose, an introduction that I didn't want to have to make. Perhaps several years ago, none of us thought that we'd be making, but there's war in the Middle East, war in Europe, and threats from China. How does Britain stay resilient?
So there's no question, as you say, the world is getting more dangerous, but you hit the nail on the head. It is all about resiliency. And since I got elected, I've talked about none of us in the UK, China hawks and others, we don't want war with other countries. What we want to do is protect ourselves from those hostile states who are attacking us, whether it be attacking people in our streets or trying to conduct assassinations, whether it be economics, whether it be trying to insert technologies into our lives, whether it's trying to steal technology from us, or whether it's other forms of warfare. We are in a form of warfare at all times. It's just very different from what we're used to. Although, as we've seen in the Middle East and Ukraine, the threat of real full-on war, as we are used to in the history books, is still ever present.
Alicia, we've been hearing from senior figures in the army, former heads of the army, and also Conservative MPs about potentially the need for conscription, about potentially bringing back national service. What's your view on all of that? Is that something that actually could be a reality if these threats don't go away?
I think we have to plan for all eventualities, and that is what the job of our military and our politicians is to do. But actually, for a very long time, about 8 years now, I've been saying that we all need to recognise that we have a responsibility to our state. We have a responsibility to hold ourselves accountable for what we choose to engage with, the narratives we choose to support. We've seen it with the Houthis recently, people out on our streets presenting them as freedom fighters. You have a duty, whether it comes to something as small as what you choose to retweet, all the way through to what you consider to be security for yourself, your loved ones, and the programs, technologies and activities you choose to engage in. We all have a responsibility towards our shared security, and no civilian can opt out of it. It isn't a choice.
Now, threats to our country don't only occur in the military sphere, they also occur in the information sphere through our media and our democracy. And yesterday you asked an urgent question in the House of Commons over the potential sale of the Telegraph Media Group. Are you satisfied with where the government is on this crucial issue?
Not as yet, because I want them to take into account the national security considerations. You hit the nail on the head. Actually, sometimes the most insidious or brutal battle is over what the truth is, or what the truth our enemies want to see projected into our countries, into our screens, into our homes, or the discussions at our kitchen tables. We have an issue here where it's not about foreign purchases, it's about foreign states owning our media. The media, as you full well know, you hold me to account, you hold Parliament to account, you hold foreign governments to account. We are proud of our press freedoms in this country. And when we are talking about a foreign state owning a paper of note, the oldest magazine in the world, you can't separate sheikh and state. And that, for me, is a fundamental problem for any country to own it, let alone one that has very different values when it comes to media freedoms.
Now, I want to ask you a story that's in the Times today about how Iranian dissidents are living in fear in this country. The counter-terrorism police are warning that there could be an increased risk of violence and also kidnapping. How big a threat is this in this country? Who are these people who are the threat?
So autocratic states, Iran, North Korea, Iran, but Russia and Iran and China in particular, there is nothing more they hate than their former citizens going to other countries and enjoying the freedoms we have for them to call out these hostile states for their activities. It's amazing how thin-skinned autocratic countries are, given the control and crackdowns they put in place. So there is no question. MI5 came out 18 months ago and said we are seeing assassinations on our soil, we're seeing attempted kidnappings, of course, intimidation. This is a reality. Autocratic states will not allow any criticism of them. And it's like Putin. He has many enemies around the world, but there is no one he hates more or will hunt down more than a Russian who he believes has betrayed the motherland, and particularly him. And so, yes, it is very common. However, who they are targeting is not British citizens, although some, of course, have dual citizenship, but they are targeting those who have fled from their countries, just as we saw with the Manchester consulate, where the Manchester consul general from China brutalised Hong Kongers so much so they had to be hospitalised.
And just finally, Alicia Kearns, this is, of course, the 4th anniversary of the United Kingdom leaving the European Union. 4 years ago today. In your view, how has that changed how Britain approaches foreign affairs?
It's given us a lot more freedom. I am unapologetic in my vote for us to leave the European Union, and the fundamentals of my view on that were shaped by foreign policy. It is complete nonsense that the EU provides our security or our defence or protects us in any way. It is all about Five Eyes and it's about NATO. Outside of the EU, we have been far more aggressive in our support to Ukraine. And that is why when I meet with President Zelensky, there is no one he thanks more than Britain as having been the leading voice, whether it came from tanks or whether it came to weapons or whether it came to standing by their side. Ukraine were able to be more aggressive and step forward more, lead the world, but also places like the Balkans, where being outside of the EU process, which is sclerotic, unbalanced, and essentially captured by vested interests of EU member states, we have been able to deploy more troops to Kosovo, and we are standing up for their interests and doing everything we can to prevent more warfare breaking out in Europe.
Alicia, sorry, just lastly, it hasn't helped us control our borders, though, it seems. And that can be viewed through the lens of a national security threat, illegal migration still through the roof, the boats still crossing.
There's no question we need to go further in illegal migration. I don't think anyone disputes that. But we have been able to bring in a points-based system, which gives us more control over who comes in legally. That's what people wanted to see. And on illegal migration, there is a reality that the French are not, in my opinion, doing all they can. And I think, unfortunately, some of that is an overhang of their opinion and frustration that we left the EU. But we are doing, how much more do we need to do? We are giving the French more money. We're giving them support. We have put people on the ground. We do need to tackle illegal migration. Every Conservative MP is committed to making sure we get those numbers down, because, yes, it is a security threat. But this isn't a failing of Brexit. This is the reality that countries around the world are facing in and out of the EU, but we do need to come up with a solution.